Welcome to How to Make It in the City on WBAI in New York 99.5 FM. This is a show where we explore both the practical and spiritual aspects of making it. This show is for artists, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and visionaries who are determined to end the cycle of working soul-crushing jobs just to pay bills. This is where we learn how to live our mission while making a great living. This is where we learn how to do well by doing good. This is where we learn how to step into our divine calling while entering a space of financial freedom and abundance. I am your host, Karikari-Yawson. In August of 2015, I quit my six-figure salary day job as a corporate lawyer to step into my purpose of healing through storytelling. I now travel the country performing my stories, such as my debut book, Sune's Gift, while facilitating presentations and training sessions for schools, universities, governments, and corporations. Loved ones, it has been quite a bumpy ride, and I have a long way to go. Let's figure out how to make it in this city together. Our goal as entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, and visionaries is to create positive change. We aim to make the world a better place through our social movements, products, services, books, films, media, and other works. Now, many of us would agree that the children's media landscape leaves much to be desired. Although more than half of U.S. kindergartners today are children of color, popular children's media contributes to lack of positive self-image because children of color are hardly represented. A University of Indiana study showed that as television watching increases among children, their actual self-esteem decreases. And that was true for every demographic, both racial and gender, of children except white males. Do you hear me? Can you imagine? So for black girls watching television, self-esteem is decreasing. White girls watching television, self-esteem is decreasing. Black boys, Asian boys, Hispanic boys, self-esteem is decreasing from increased media watching due to the lack of diverse images and empowered roles. Our guest today, Daryll Grayson, is on a mission to change that. Daryll Grayson is a former BET executive who wanted to combine his expertise in media and entertainment with his passion for education and his love for children into a force that would develop programming to inspire children between the ages of 2 and 11. After coming upon a series of videos called Tell Me Why, while searching for entertaining educational content for his daughter Nia, he first thought of the idea of creating Tell Me Who I Am, an animated series in which children would learn history and science by actually becoming the historical role models they learned about. Learning about accomplishments in history and science in a fun and entertaining way and seeing themselves connected to that history and that science would motivate them and inspire them to succeed. That was his thought process. The Tell Me Who I Am series concept thus was born in the 1990s. Now, with the growth of digital video and global streaming, Mr. Grayson has decided it is now time to relaunch Tell Me Who I Am in the form of a 13-episode series to enlighten children throughout the world. We are so happy to have him here on How to Make It in the City. Welcome, Daryll Grayson.
Hello.
How are you, Daryll?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are grateful to have you. So please tell us a little about your upbringing. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Wow. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, in and around the Los Angeles County area, South Central Los Angeles, Inglewood, Compton, Long Beach, throughout the area. And, you know, I grew up with, two brothers and two sisters. So by today's standards, a relatively large family, right?
Yes.
And And my childhood was like the average childhood of an African American living in South Central Los Angeles. I lived right down the street from USC. For those of you who are in South Carolina, that's the University of Southern California, not South Carolina. And I say that only because when I was coming up in the 60s as a kid, in the early 70s, there were community programs at that campus, at USC's campus, and we used to spend summers up there doing activities and so forth, and hanging out at the museums and so forth. So that, but never even thought about the idea of attending college there, but just something right there in the heart of the community. And later ended up going to college there. So that was an interesting experience. But yes, just regular childhood growing up, and obviously during that time, we couldn't even compare what media is today, given that we had about 3 or 4 channels that we could watch, and whatever was on for children, that's what you watched. So fast forward to 20 years later, and you look back on that experience, and you think, given the plethora of channels and opportunities to provide media opportunities, isn't it amazing that we still have not really reached the goal of diverse television and diverse media with the right kinds of images and messages and stories of all peoples?
Well, thank you for sharing that. So now, what were you watching on those 3 or 4 channels? Did you see children who looked like you and looked like your siblings and your neighbors?
I saw Stymie and Buckwheat.
Okay.
I saw, Little Rascals. I saw Speed Racer. I saw the Flintstones. Did I see people that represented me in the Brady Bunch? No. So in those days, when coming up, no. Everything that we experienced, for the most part, was white commercials and white television shows and white cartoons.
Yes.
We were not represented very well.
Okay, and those representations that you did have were not necessarily as empowering as you would have liked them to be. But despite that, you clearly were successful. You were able to attend USC. Tell us how you got into television and media, because you used to be an executive at BET.
Right. I started out with an interest in media when I was at Long Beach State. I went to California State University, Long Beach, as a broadcast journalism major, and that was my interest in media, was to be a journalist. Mm-hmm. And one day I saw a broadcasting magazine, and on the cover of Broadcasting magazine was a picture of a guy by the name of Robert L. Johnson.
Wow.
Many people know him as Bob Johnson, who was the founder of BET, Black Entertainment Television, right? And this is back in the 1980s, early 1980s, when he initially founded the network. I just happened to see that while I was in school, and that was really the genesis of me realizing, yes, Black entertainment, media, solution. How can we use media? In fact, because at that time I was on campus, and as you could imagine, there was a lot of activity on campus around issues, Black Student Union and issues on campus and so forth. So we were always searching for new ways to improve our conditions as college, is up and coming professionals who were in college. And so I kind of put the two together, like profession, media. That was my first interest in media. Decided to go to grad school, which is when I applied to USC's Annenberg School for Communication. I ended up going to USC, but still had this thought in my mind of media. Now my first opportunity in terms of actually working, let's get outside of the area of school, was when I got out of school, and I decided that I was going to go sell cable door to door for commission-only compensation after I graduated from college. That was my move. People thought I was crazy. But I had learned about this new industry, this cable industry, having seen this magazine article and read up further on what was going on. This is the beginning of the cable industry, the beginning of CNN, the beginning of ESPN and MTV and so forth, the very, very beginning. And I figured, let's get in on the ground floor, because I had determined that though I had previously decided I wanted to be a broadcast journalist after having done some internships and so forth, realized really they had no control over what was seen on television. And it was the people behind the scenes, the people who were involved in management and ownership, who really dictated what we were going to see. And so I said, I've got to get in somewhere on the ground floor. And that's what I started doing. I started selling cable television door to door as a way to get into the media industry. Eventually moved up in the cable industry. And as I finished grad school, was able to connect with Bob Johnson and, encourage him to bring me to Washington, D.C. To help build the network.
Sounds really, really exciting. Okay, so now you're a BET executive, and at that point, what exactly did your role entail?
Well, I started out selling the network. So the main thing that we needed at that time was distribution. It was a very new network. It had very limited distribution, probably about 3 to 5 million subscribers out of a potential, ultimately 100 million. So we had a lot of work to do in terms of getting distribution. And at that time, mostly cable was in rural and then eventually suburban areas. The way cable started is that it was a way of extending the broadcast signal to people who were in rural areas who didn't have access to broadcast channels. And that's kind of how it started. And then it grew from there, from just redistributing broadcast television stations to distributing new programming, such as BET. And so most of us didn't live in rural areas.
Yes.
Right? Most of us didn't live in suburban areas. The last areas to be wired for cable was the urban centers,
where African Americans were popular.
Relevant.
Oh, pardon me, Daryl. So you're saying the last place for cable to go was urban centers, but then you had a network that specifically appealed to urban consumers. So you all kind of had to work the opposite way. Interesting.
Exactly. We had to go into places like Des Moines, Iowa, and, some of these cities, even San Diego, for example, that had very limited African-American populations, and convinced general managers that they should carry this channel. So we just kind of had a rule. We had a rule, if you were 3% of higher black population in your city, you needed to be carrying BET. And so we had a list of every single cable franchise in the country, and we matched that up against the population statistics and did our targeting. And so my job was to go out and convince these cable operators that they ought to be carrying BET. And I did that for a number of years, and then moved into special assistant to the president, where I was more involved in evaluating regulatory issues and new development, business development opportunities, extending us into international and other ways of developing the network. So I did a number of things while I was there. As I said, I was hired by the president and was put into a number of different positions. I worked on the production side, creating new opportunities for business development on the production side, and also worked on the marketing side. We did a tour called BET on Wheels, and I created a theme for it called Unity in the Community, where we traveled around the country in a 18-wheeler tractor trailer that I built and designed that folded out into a concert stage, and we would have events at parks and other places. In fact, we did something in New York. We did something in New York, L.A., Chicago, New Orleans, Detroit, where we brought people together via music, right? But at the same time, the whole idea was to curb gang violence. That's why we called it Unity in the Community. The effort was to get people to realize that we all needed to be unified. And let's stop the violence, and let's figure out a way that we can help one another. And so I did a number of things while I was there. That probably was the last project that I was involved in before I left to start my own company.
Okay, great. But now, before I bridge to how exactly you wound up coming up with Tell Me Who I Am and how you were able to get it started. I just want to transition in this way. So you were there at BET, which is a station that many black people are critical of. And I remember, I think Bob Johnson made a comment one time, this is not black education TV, this is black entertainment TV. And that was his response to the criticism. Did you feel as if you had the ability at that time to sort of change it from within and put really positive, empowering images, especially for children, on BET?
That was the primary reason I went there, was to do exactly that, was to be someone who learned and understood the industry, knew the ins and outs of the network and how it functioned, but then use that knowledge and experience to begin to kind of direct the programming in a way that it would benefit our community. That's the only reason I was there. But initially, my focus was on doing my job. Let me figure out a way where I can make sure that I'm an important component of this network, and then use what I know to influence the direction we go in. And the reality of it is that it was more difficult and challenging than I expected. Everyone does not have the same view and vision that you have. Some people look at, television and media opportunities as strictly business. What can I do to make the most money? If you look at radio, for example, people have the same criticism of radio. Why do they put trash on the air? It's been an ongoing debate for years. Is it the record label's fault? Is it the radio station's fault? Is it the listener's fault for not demanding more? And so those are all issues that will always be a part of, black media, whether it's television or radio or magazines. There's always been criticisms labeled against those. Same thing with the new networks, whether it's TV One or whether it's a Magic's network Aspire or whether it's Bounce TV. One of my biggest complaints is that all of these networks, even the one I worked at, BET, have not done enough to provide really, truly inspirational, motivational, and at the same time entertaining, because I don't get away from the idea of entertainment. It's extremely important. It has to be entertaining. But you can be very creative in how you present your entertainment to make sure that you are using what I think is an important vehicle for our upliftment and progress. And so, I came there with the notion of helping to transform and grow the network, because it was so new that I wouldn't even say transform yet. I mean, build it into something, a powerhouse that would be able to provide the kind of programming that I think is important. Now, the reality is that BET never had any interest or intention in going into children's programming. They dabbled in it for a minute or two they had something on called Kimbo Kids, and we did a storybook, show with animated, storytelling of children's books. And then we did a teen show that was more geared toward teen called Teen Summit. So we kind of was dabbled in that area a little bit, but it was never Bob Johnson's or any of the other executives' interest to pursue children's program, which is fine. I understand that. And they look, you got Nickelodeon and you got Cartoon Network, and they do children's programming. We do entertainment that's geared more toward a 12 to 24, and then even you could expand to 34 audience. Primarily during that time, only because we did so many music videos, it was geared toward a young audience. Even though we had Bobby Jones Gospel and we had Black College Sports, we had Ed Goy with BET News and so forth, and we were trying to make it into an overall family network. For business reasons, it always kept going back for a long time to music videos, and for a long time even, if you'll recall, a lot of infomercial programming
on Sundays.
Those are business decisions. Should I put on a program for this hour and get paid $20,000 for someone buying that time with no cost, total profit? Should I put on a music video show for $2,000 an episode and make buku bucks? Or should I try to develop a drama series that costs $200,000 an episode and I'm making $40,000 an episode on advertising revenue? So those are business decisions that were made as to how and so I learned a lot about why programming decisions are made. You got to understand the business aspect of it. But I had no interest ultimately in being a part of something that was going to be negative. And I bore the brunt of a lot of criticism being out on the road of people.
Sure.
Why do you guys do this and why do you do that? So I had to deal with a lot of those questions. And early on, my answers were always, we're growing the network. We're growing the network. And we're going to do that. We got to get to a point. We don't have some of these other networks' programming budgets. And the advertisers don't pay us what they pay the other networks. And we don't get enough support from advertising revenue. And the cable operators are not distributing us as quickly as they should, so we don't get that per subscriber per month revenue. Okay, we always had a dual source of revenue: advertising and subscription fees. So what you pay to your cable operator or what you pay to DirecTV, a portion of that comes back to us as a subscription that we charge the cable operator to be able to distribute the network.
But pardon me, Daryll. So no, we are in the interest of time, I would like to move on to Tell Me Who I Am. But I completely understand. I think you've given us a phenomenal explanation as to your challenge. You went there with a mission, but because your mission was not necessarily the mission of other powers that be, and because there are business considerations that are beyond empowerment, social well-being considerations, you are not able to meet that agenda. So now tell us, at this point, how old are you? What point are you in your life? Do you have kids when you decide, I'm leaving BET and I'm doing something different? Tell us about that, please.
Well, I actually started while I was still there. I started planning what I wanted to do with my future and evaluating what impact I wanted to have as a person who knew media. And so I just made a decision that I was going to do what I wanted to do that I thought I was best at. And I looked at three things. I said, I know the media industry. I know television. All right. I've always been told that I should be a teacher. Okay. The way I explain things, the way I interact with people. So I said, I'm good at teaching. All right. And I said, I love children. All right. And I had a daughter at the time who was young. And so I took those three things, media education and a love for children, and decided I wanted to do something that was going to have a positive impact on our children, right? And so I was, anybody remember Blockbuster at the time? I was in Blockbuster, and I saw a series called Tell Me Why. You mentioned it at the beginning of the show. And it just hit me. Sure, children need to understand and know about how trains work and how electricity works and how farms work, and that's what that series was about. But I said more importantly, our kids need to know who they are. When I say they need to know who they are, I meant they need to understand their history. And so that's how I came up with Tell Me Who I Am. And I said it's got to be done in a way where it's fun for children. It's got to be entertaining for children in order for them to pay attention to it. That's number one. Because it can be the most educational thing in the world, but if it's not fun and entertaining and it doesn't capture their attention, then it doesn't matter. All right? So I came up with Tell Me Who I Am, and I created it as a game of kids having to guess who a particular historical figure is. Benjamin Banneker, and Imhotep, Bessie Coleman, Patricia Bath, all of these people who have made significant contributions to our history in different areas. And I want to specifically focus on science and the STEM field because I thought that it was something that had not been covered enough. So we learned a lot about civil rights leaders, or we might have learned about people who were abolitionists and other people, political figures and so forth. But we did not really popularize people in science, engineering, and math. And I wanted to uplift them as heroes. I wanted our children to see them as heroes the way they saw athletes and entertainers as heroes. So although I was not going to focus exclusively on scientists, that's where we wanted to start our focus. And so we made it fun. We made it so that kids would turn into these historical figures. And you'll know from having watched the movie how, they turn into Benjamin Banneker and Macy Jemison, Benjamin Banneker, who made the first striking clock in America and wrote an almanac and helped design our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. So kids need to know this, and they need to learn it in a creative and fun way. And so that's why and how I initially came up with the idea for Tell Me Who I Am.
Okay, great. So you have the idea. How did you get it into an animated series? And this is, yes, before we take our break. So you're at BET, you're spending time and money on the side at that point, creating this game. At that point, did you also start coming up with the storyline for the animation part of it? The story.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
At what point then do you say, I'm leaving BET and I'm doing this full time?
Oh, it was quite a while. It was probably 3 years when I started on it until the time I left. And to answer your question, I did it all at the same time. So I'm coming up with the game, but at the same time I'm coming up with the storyline. So it's all happening at the same time. I'm writing a script for the first episode. I'm coming up with characters. I'm coming up with songs. So I'm coming up with educational methodology. I'm doing research. Because I'm not just writing a script. I'm going to do a movie, let me write a script. I'm not just sitting down saying, I would like to do a game, let me sit down and come up with a game. No, I'm thinking of a comprehensive multimedia franchise for this concept of Tell Me Who I Am. To introduce characters, to introduce an animated series, to introduce games, to introduce dolls. All of these things are a part of the initial concept. And so I'm forming a strategy for these products introduced through this Tell Me Who I Am brand, and at the same time figuring out how do I combine the entertainment and the education. So I spent a lot of time studying and learning about how media is used as an educational tool. All right, I consulted with people who were in the profession of education to get their advice on strategy for how to create the characters and the story and so forth. So I'm doing all of this during that time, while I'm still at BET, and figuring out, okay, once I get everything together of what I want to do, how am I going to pay for it? So I'm also thinking about that and realizing as I'm doing the business plan, the cost of it all. And so it's probably why I didn't initially leave BET. So,
sure.
Okay, stay on your day job until you're ready to go. And so what happened was, I actually left to start another business that was more of a revenue generation business as opposed to a business I really had to invest a lot of money in before I was going to see a return over the long term. And so I left in 1994 and started my company, Positive Communications, which was the parent company at the time for Tell Me Who I Am, but it was really a business that was focused more on providing a client service to people in the media industry. As someone who had gotten experience doing television marketing and advertising, I saw an opportunity for clients to benefit from a new way of reaching customers. And in particular, because of our relationship with the music industry, as a significantly music-oriented network, and because of the tour I had been doing as vice president of consumer marketing, I interacted with a lot of the record labels. I saw first an opportunity for record labels. They were trying to break new artists, and I saw an opportunity to provide them a new way that they could reach their markets via cable that they hadn't thought of before. So the initial business I started was to help those record labels to figure out a way to advertise in key markets by zip code and tie those marketing efforts into actual sales so they could determine where they were having the most impact. Anyways,
Daryll?
Yes.
Thank you so much. We are deeply enthralled with the conversation. We want to learn more about the sort of cash cow and the development of Tell Me Who I Am. But at this moment, we would like to take a short musical break, and we will be able to expose the audience to the beauty of Tell Me Who I Am by playing the Tell Me Who I Am theme song.
Tell me who I am, tell me who I am, tell me who I am, who I am.
take me by the hand. For I am lost in this strange land. I've been told by some the cause is me. Somehow I know that cannot be, because a voice inside has said that life for me can be a thing of endless possibility, and that the key to life for me in this strange land. If you could tell me.
You're a doer, you're a seer, you're a healer and a believer. You're a builder, a maker, sometimes a freer and always a leader. Learning through emoja, growing through Nia, depending on your own self, Kuji Chagalia. Sum total of all hopes and aspirations, core unit of a strong young nation. Listen, through mental evolution, listen, we got to find this positive solution. So check this out. Tell me who I am.
Welcome back. You are listening to How to Make It in the City on WBAI in New York City, 99.5 FM. We are continuing our discussion with media entrepreneur and producer of the African and African American themed animated series, Tell Me Who I Am, Daryll Grayson. You just heard the theme song to the series, which is also called Tell Me Who I Am. Daryll, so happy to have you back.
Good to be back with you.
Great. So let's get back to where we left off. It's 1994. You realize at this point that BET is not going to meet you with respect to your mission of using media as a tool for empowerment. You have already spent some time, some years, thinking about Tell Me Who I Am, developing a game surrounding Tell Me Who I Am, meeting with educators, meeting with artists and animators. So you've already begun, but you believe your transition out of BET is creating this company, Positive Media, in which you basically will have a client-facing business helping record labels, who you already knew through your relationships at BET, to make more money and penetrate audience members. Is that a good summary?
I could not have recapped that better myself.
Okay, great. So now, just for the entrepreneurs among us, what exactly are the clients, the record labels, paying you to do? Are you placing ads for them? Are you calling radio stations and saying, play this artist? What exactly did you do to help them reach their target?
I'm doing primarily media planning and media buying and trafficking, which means that they have an artist that they want to promote. They need to do a commercial. I give them directions on doing the commercials, and then I actually place the media for them. I identify, based upon their marketing objectives that we go through, who they want to reach, geographically where they want to reach them, and I provide the plan for where they need to buy their media to target that particular audience, how those ads are going to run, and then do the post-analysis of those ads to make sure they're reaching their targeted audiences and continually improve their campaign. So I'm basically managing their budgets to be effective to reach their audience so they can sell records. And then we tie that into the record stores. Remember back in the day when we still had record stores?
Yes.
Yeah, so we tied them into the record stores to get tracking on where they were actually selling by the zip code level. And they had not done this before. And, you know, they had run ads on national media. You know, they might buy an ad on Saturday Night Live or David Letterman or something like that. But they had not pinpointed geographically down to the zip code level, which is what cable television allows you to do. Even when they were trying to do perhaps local broadcast television, you're still dealing with a really broad spectrum of the audience that you have to advertise across. And so you might be wasting money. If you want to advertise to reach, you know, inner city market in Los Angeles, because that's where the trends start, particularly if you're talking about hip hop, for example, then why would you want to reach people in the outskirts who don't have the same, density of the population you're trying to reach? So anyways, I helped them do that, and it was very effective, and I worked with most of the major record labels.
Okay, great. So now we have a better understanding. And so at this point, you are an entrepreneur in two ways. You have your business, which is interfacing with record labels and engaging in media planning and media buying on their behalf with tracking. And then you have Tell Me Who I Am. What at this point is going on with Tell Me Who I Am, and how exactly did you put the pieces together? How did you meet animators to be able to say, hey, this is the script. How would you go about animating it? How did you get it onto, the whatever format you needed at the time? I guess it was a DVD. Who were you engaging to make the Tell Me Who I Am part come true?
Right, that's a good question. I would say there's probably two fronts, what I would call the business side and what I would call the creative side. So on the creative side, we were continually, when I say we, I was working with a business partner who was an attorney and a musician, a friend of mine, who helped work with me in developing the concepts and the script. We were working with some key educational folks, one of them, Dr. Lisa Delpit, who was an expert in African-American learning styles. And so we were engaging both with, we had several writers that we used, that I hired, that wrote scripts. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like. I had written the initial script, but I wanted to hire writers who were better than I were at writing after I had developed the content. So that's the creative side of it. We were developing just still on the pre-production, on the concepts, on the ideas, on the story. It was so important to get it right, how we mixed in the entertainment and, you know, some of the comical aspects of the story, some of the adventurous aspects of the story, and still infuse it with the right educational message. I spent a lot of time doing that, given that it was kind of doing it on my off time. I also invested in commissioning some research targeting the African-American audience to figure out what they really were looking for. Would they be interested in a product like this? So I did some research. And at the same time, I began to look for people in the animation business because I didn't have animation experience. And so we started with hiring some illustrators who began to draw some characters for us in conjunction with the development of the story itself. And then just based upon relationships that I had, having been in the industry, in television and so forth, I knew people who knew people, and I was able to come across a gentleman who had extensive experience in the animation business way back to Sesame Street. It did a lot of the Saturday morning cartoon shows with some of the superheroes and, you know, Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers and so forth. So I hooked up with him and a couple of other people who did animation, and we kind of talked about the story, and I ended up hiring him to take some of the concepts that we had and really get us some really nice illustrations of characters and backgrounds beyond kind of the sketches that we had already done. But we did enough that we could give them guidance on what we wanted the characters to look like in the backgrounds and so forth. So we hired this particular person and a number of other illustrators, both on the East Coast and West Coast. And I was on the East Coast at this time. You know, I'm from Los Angeles. Remember, I had moved to D.C. to work for BET, so I'm still in Washington, D.C. when I'm developing this. But I'm still from L.A., so I'm back and forth to L.A. a lot because some of the people that I wanted to work with us were in Hollywood. And so we just kind of, you know, year after year improved upon the script, improved upon the concept, and improved upon us raising money. Now, the idea was to try and raise private equity, but it's hard to do that when you're just in the idea stage. And people just don't see the vision. And we had a grand vision. And so what we did was we decided that we were going to take the profits that we were generating from our, as you say, client-facing business and begin to invest those profits in this vision.
Okay,
Daryll. That was the beginning stage.
Daryll, so now at this point,
yes,
how long would you say it took you? So what was the time commitment between, I don't know whether it was 91 when you first had the idea and first started getting a team together, and whatever year it was that Tell Me Who I Am came out. What was that time amount? 7 years. And how much money do you say it would take? That it did take, pardon me. How much money in that 7 years? It
took about between $400,000 and $500,000.
Okay. Between $400,000 to $500,000, that was basically all bootstrapped from members of the team, including yourself.
Right.
Wow.
That's right.
Okay. So now So now it came out in what, 1997?
That's correct.
So it comes out in 1997 after having spent basically, let's round to $500,000 on the project. You have a team. It seems as if, at least a dozen people somehow have put their mark on it, whether as writers or illustrators or educators or animators and what have you. How exactly then do you market it? And how exactly what exactly is the audience response?
Right. So what we did was, at that time, the popular media for video distribution was VHS, okay? And so we watched, the big boys, Disney and Fox Video and Warner Home Video do what they did in terms of marketing either direct-to-home video, meaning it never went on television or was in the movies, or projects that were, aftermarket television series or feature films. But home video was a big market. People were buying VHS left and right. And so that's what we did. We once we finished production on it in 97, we already had our vendors in place to do the video manufacturing of VHSs, and that's how we, marketed the product or manufactured the product. And then we did advertising. We did advertising in Essence magazine, and Ebony magazine, and some of the black-owned newspapers, on radio, on cable television. So this is beyond the initial $400,000 to $500,000. Now we're talking about beyond production and development costs. Now we're talking about marketing costs. So we begin to extend dollars to build the brand name as well as to directly and immediately sell product. The problem let's start with what was successful. What was successful was that we got a great response.
Okay.
The target market loved what we were doing. So we got very good response. They wanted more, and they wanted more. But the issue was distribution. Most people who are doing any kind of major animation projects usually are doing it in conjunction with a co-production partner in television, whether it's ABC or Nickelodeon or the Cartoon Network. They're usually doing a deal where they're going to someone and they're saying, I've got an idea and I want you to finance it. And then those folks get involved, and now they've got more creative control, but you've got a financial partner who's going to foot a lot of the bill. And we talked to folks like that, but we had determined that they just did not understand what we were doing, and they had no interest in what we were doing, given its current format and message. And, and we realized the only way we're going to get this through the traditional process is for it to change and for it to be something other than what we originally intended. And so we didn't really pursue that as much once we realized folks didn't really understand the project. And so we started marketing it ourselves and selling the VHSs and going through independent black bookstores. Back then we had a lot more than we have now. And we were selling it through those retail outlets. We were selling it via direct response marketing. So we would advertise on television and tell them to call a 1-800 number. We had our whole telemarketing system set up. We sold product that way. We went on the Tom Joyner Morning Show as an example. We did a radio buy with Tom Joyner Morning Show, and in addition to the radio buy, our PR folks were able to arrange an interview, just like we're doing now with Tom Joyner. And he announced it and kind of endorsed the project. And like in a span of an hour, we sold about 1,500 units just from that one radio interview. Because folks just start calling like crazy. That's when Tom Joyner was big and syndicated across the nation. And so we did that as a marketing vehicle. And then you know what happened, right?
No, tell us.
Eventually, VHS disappeared.
Oh, well, we do know that. So VHS disappeared because, my kids don't know what a VHS is. Most people, I'm sure, I was born in 80, and most people, who are younger than me have no clue, would not know what that is. Okay, so great. So VHS then is losing market sway because of DVDs, and you had to now produce them in DVD form.
Right. So, and we did it initially. All right, so we had all of these VHS units because we had done a major manufacturing. So we were stocking inventory We had plenty of inventory available. But then the industry kind of transitioned slowly into DVD. And at the same time, you remember that the internet was continually growing, because when we first started, the internet was not huge, and it definitely did not exist for video yet. There was no bandwidth yet available to be able to distribute video across the internet. So that wasn't an option.
Now, pardon me, Daryll,
yes.
In the interest of time, we have to get to the core matter, which is this. Brother, I've watched it several times. My children who are in the audience have watched it several times. My son Jojo, after the first time watching it, because we were watching it in 2016 on DVD, said, you know, Mommy, can we watch that old Brown Kids movie again? He referred to it as an old Brown Kids movie because he could tell the animation was not modern. You said this was first made in 97, but it was a Brown Kids movie because there were so many kids in it who were brown, and they asked me, what's next? Let's get to the core here, Brother Daryll. What is going on that you initially had this DVD, well, it was then VHS released, and a lot of time has passed. In the time, we went from VHS to DVD, and now everything is streaming. So we've seen technological revolution. Your daughter, Nia, who you first made this for, is now a big person, is now an adult. Why? What do you believe occurred that you were not able to then go into producing the sequels quickly? Like, why didn't we see a 97 version, then a 2000, then a 2003? Like, what exactly happened? Was it the money? Was it the, marketing? You tell us in your own perspective what happened. Why we have not yet seen 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're just now at this point about to launch a series, which you'll discuss later.
It's always the money, Alma. It's always about the money. Yes. So here's the thing. You'll recall we discussed the first episode. We invested about $400,000 to $500,000 in it. So could we have come up with another, $400,000? Could we have done it for a little less, maybe $350,000, and done the next episode? Probably we could have. We could have scraped it up and done it. We decided not to, and the reason why we decided not to is the same reason why is because people began to ask for where's the next one. What we did not want to do is do a next one, and then people say, where's the next one? A year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So I made a commitment that I'm not going to produce this until I can produce a full series, because the real benefit of it is for a child to be able to watch one episode after the other. The whole idea and concept of Tell Me Who I Am required that they be able to actually get the lessons on a continuous basis, as opposed to do one here and then another year later, maybe you come out with the next one, and maybe another year or two you come out with the next one. So here we are now. I decided now, because now is the ripe opportunity. Now that digital video is real, now that you can reach an audience globally instantaneously, whereas before we could not do that. We had to manufacture a VHS and ship it somewhere, and then they get to watch. Now we can reach an audience globally. So here we are now, and we've begun raising the money for a full 13-episode series. But instead of $450,000 for 13 episodes, now we're talking about raising $6 million to be able to do the full 13 episodes. We've already begun working on them. We've got scripts. We've got stories. We've got some new characters. We've got designs of some of the old characters. So we're ready to go with that. But now what we want to do is that and this is something I thought about even when I was back at BET, we have to go directly to our primary target audience, African Americans with children between the ages of 2 to 11. That's who we are making this product for. And so what we're doing now is that we're getting ready to do a Kickstarter campaign to raise money to support the 13 episodes. And one of the first things we're doing toward that effort, this is what I call the pre-Kickstarter campaign, is we have built an ambassador program to get people to join by going on our website as an ambassador for the Kickstarter campaign. Those folks would refer people to our campaign once it starts. So and they would get a reward for that. So you refer 20 people, you get a free Princess Nia doll. I don't know. I think you've probably seen the doll that I put up.
Yes. I've seen it. My kids want it. Even though they're boys, they want it because they love the character and they love Funzy. I mean, listeners, it is a phenomenal DVD that your children will love. Tell Me Who I Am. So, yes, you're about to do this Kickstarter. Please tell audience members how they can support you. How can they follow what's going on? How can they become ambassadors? How can they support the Kickstarter once it begins?
Excellent. You can follow us both on social media and by going to our website. So let me give you the website first. You can go to www.kidpositive. All right, that's kid, KIDPOSITIVE, kidpositive, all one word, .com. And there, as soon as you get to the home page, you will see all the information about the upcoming Kickstarter campaign, how you can click sign up to join as an ambassador. And it walks you through the process. You just click ambassador, see details, and it'll walk you through the process to sign up. And once you sign up on our website, you'll have a dashboard where you can go into your dashboard and you can add people's emails that you want to invite to back the campaign. So you just sign up. Everything is handled right there on the website, and it'll show you as you tally up the number of people that you're inviting and pledge how many backers that you have. Once you get to 20 backers, you get the free Princess Nia doll. So you'll be doing two things. You'll be helping us to create, as you know, is a great series for our kids, and at the same time, you'll also be getting a free Princess Nia doll. So you'll be doing two great things for yourself and for the greater community, we think, because we think that every child needs to be able to have all 13 of these episodes. I mean, I'm talking about, in the first episode, we talk about Macy Jemison and Imhotep and Benjamin Banneker. In the second episode, we go to England during World War I, where the blood banks created by Dr. Charles Drew were first used in order to save soldiers' lives. And so we have the kids travel back in time during that time period where they meet Dr. Charles Drew, and they continue on their journey to rescue her parents from Timbuktu. So it's very exciting stories. Again, on the website, you can read all about the upcoming stories, why you should support them, what we're going to be doing, and sign up for our ambassador program. You can also follow us on social media at Facebook, Tell Me Who I Am TV, Instagram, Tell Me Who I Am TV, and at Kid Positive on Twitter.
Perfect. Mr. Daryll,
wherever you're involved.
Brother, we appreciate you. I mean, honestly, if you deserve to be a billionaire for what you have created. African American parents consistently complain about not being able to find positive media for their children to enjoy. So given the need out there, we would have thought you would have become an instant, millionaire in 1997 when it first began, or instant billionaire in 1997 when it first began. And so although it's delayed, we know that it will come to fruition, and we wish you so much luck and blessings on the journey. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, my sister. I appreciate you having me.
This concludes How to Make It in the City. We are grateful for the expertise and experience of children's media entrepreneur Daryll Grayson. Thanks so much for listening. I am your host, Ama Karikari-Yawson, Esquire, author of Sune's Gift and educator. I'd love to visit your school, corporation, or organization, so please feel free to contact me at AMA, A-M-A, at WBAI.org. Again, AMA, A-M-A, at WBAI.org. You can also call me at 347-886-2026. Again, 347-886-2026. Listeners, we need you. We really, really need you. Please become a WBAI buddy. For what you spend on coffee a month, you can work to help us sustain this station by just giving us that money, please. So please consider going to www.wbai.org and becoming a WBAI buddy today. You can do it in the name of all the shows, or you can do it in the name of how to make it in the city. We want to continue to empower you. So please, please, please sign up. Thank you for your time. Until next week, I'm wishing you all love, joy, health, peace, and prosperity. Be well, loved ones.